And now, coming at you from the 5-Star Physique Studio in Knoxville, Tennessee, this is The Drop Set with your host, Darren Starr.
Hey everybody, welcome to The Drop Set, episode 180. I am Darren Starr. I am here. We are going to cut right to the chase today. There are not going to be any updates on TV shows I'm watching or my yard status or what's going on with the dogs. We're jumping right into our guest today. This is Miss Lynn Nauyokas. Nauyokas. We just had this conversation. You told me how to say it.
You got it. It was good.
It took me two tries.
I just forgot one syllable. It's all right.
How you doing?
Great.
Awesome.
How are you doing, Darren?
Oh, I had a back workout today, so I'm a little tired. I didn't get to finish my post-workout carbs before we started this, so I'm still a little hungry.
Are you going to eat while you're on camera? Because I think you should.
You think? I don't think anybody else would agree with you, so I probably won't.
Okay.
So full disclosure, you are my coach.
I am.
Yes, and have been since October, something like that?
Yeah. And I'm honored. I'm honored to be your coach.
Oh, really? Honored?
Yeah.
Can
I? Yeah, this is going to turn into a Darren Starr interview.
Oh, no, we can't.
So I'd like you to know
you're not turning this shit around on me. No, I'm not going to let you.
Okay. Go ahead.
I have some hard-hitting questions for you, if you're ready here.
All right.
I came prepared with several. First one. This is the hardest one. Tell me about your guinea pigs.
My guinea pigs.
Yeah.
So I have 3 guinea pigs.
Yeah.
And they are all female. Yes. And they all have personalities, and they're just like my babies.
Why guinea pigs? Where did this come from?
So one night I was Googling stuff because I couldn't sleep, and my brother has a pig and he's got a farm. So I was like, I should get a baby pig, but no, because I didn't want a dog because I was like, a dog is going to be like a lot of pressure when I'm traveling. So I'm just going to get guinea pigs because they are cool, and I did a lot of research on them, and I never had one. And I was like, they're not like a rabbit. It's not like a hamster. So they're basically little mini dog, rabbit, pigs, because I'm looking at one of them eating. All they do is eat. They're really fun when they play together. It's super cute too, because they got really cool personalities. But each one is so independent. Like they're just very individual with their personality types.
That is cool.
And they're like, yeah, I love them. So, I don't know. It was like a weird, not thought out purchase. I just one day decided I'm going to get a guinea pig.
Just randomly go onto Amazon and order up a few guinea pigs. And
you can buy them on Amazon, but that's okay.
It's not an Amazon thing? They don't ship those?
No.
Okay.
No, they better not.
They better not. Well, I think the Amazon boxes, they'd have little holes in them probably so they can breathe.
I'll have 30 of them. Don't put that in my head, Darren.
Okay. Anyway. All right. So you are you're pretty elite. You're an IFBB pro.
Yes.
You're
I wouldn't call it elite.
You're a big deal.
No, I wouldn't say it's a big deal. Yeah, no. But
okay,
yeah,
that's fair.
I did turn pro. Yes.
In what, 2018, 19?
2018.
Okay.
Turned pro.
And here is something that I really want this audience to hear. And you can give me an approximate number on this if you're not totally sure. How many times did you compete before turning pro?
I competed about, oh God, this is like 30, probably 29, 30 times.
Okay. All right. So the word of the day, ladies and gentlemen, is persistence.
Yes.
And if you're going to compete 29, 30 times, you're not going to do that unless you really, really enjoy pretty much everything about this.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Or find a way to convince yourself during some times that hey, I'm doing this for a reason, etc. But you can't be convincing yourself all the time through prep 29 or 30 times, trying to sell yourself on the process. You've got to legitimately believe it and buy into it.
Oh yeah. And I think part of the reason why, so I never wanted to do, I used to buy the magazines when I was young, like I know 17, 18, 19, and I saw them on the magazine racks, and I was like, how do they get like this? And I watched ESPN, and I watched Monica Brandt and like Corey Everson's show on, I think it was Gotta Sweat or something like that. It was on ESPN back in the day. They had the Olympia on TV back then. So like,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think that I could possibly look like that. And I had no idea how that could even work, you know? Like, how do you get like that? Because they looked so crazy and muscular and they're
So
women.
how did you get started?
Well, so I was a runner and I was like 115 pounds when I joined the Marine Corps, if that. And I started running with like, no kidding, like ankle weights on my wrist. Like I was like trying to prepare for the Marine Corps. So I was like, you know, growing up, like I went through like a rough teenage years, you know, a lot of doubt, a lot of, you know, issues like, you know, just normal teenager stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, I threw myself in the Marine Corps, long story short. But to prepare for that, like I started going over the top with my training. I thought it was gonna be like I thought it was gonna be like one of those war movies.
G.I. Jane.
Basically. So like I started running with like a weight vest and all kinds of like heavy stuff just to get in shape. So I was like pretty much, you know, ready for war by the time I went.
Yeah. So you're like a combat runner. You weren't doing like a bunch of like weightlifting or anything like that.
No, I just started getting, so then I bought the book. First I bought the book Body for Life. And I read that book and I thought it was the coolest book because it basically taught you about portions and this and like how to like structure your workouts and only to do 20 minutes of cardio in the morning and you're good, right?
It's a good primer.
That was a great primer. It was a good, you know, for learning when you're younger. Because at that time I was probably like 16, 17, something like that. And I started researching about diet. And I kind of got like into this when I was younger, you know, or some people find it when they're older, but it just became my thing. And then I was so fascinated by the human body that I just kept like researching and I have like this whole like binder this thick of articles like that I've printed out from like the American Sports Medicine journals and all this just like about the glycemic index. And I mean, it was just like everything I could figure out. I was like, I need to learn all of this. And if I don't know, I'm going to ask somebody who knows. Like I would go to the doctor and I would pick their brain. Like if I went to look, if they want to talk to me about cholesterol, I wanted to know exactly how it works. I was that kid.
I'm sure they
You know?
really looked forward to you coming around. Like, oh
Yeah, no,
God,
not
here she comes
really.
again. Jesus.
I was like, so why is cholesterol like, you know, I would ask this question. Anyways, so I go in the Marine Corps, and I went to the gym and this one guy said, you should do a show. And I said, me? I was like, I don't really want to be a bodybuilder though. Like I like the fitness thing, right? But that was the first show I ever did. So I was 19, 20 years old when I started prepping and I didn't know anything. There was no coaches. There's nothing. I was all online. And
There
you
was no
basically,
YouTube. There was no bodybuilding.com.
no,
Yeah.
no, right, Karen? So
Yeah.
like you really had to like research or buy, I bought the perfect posing video by Gary Udit.
What it comes down to back then, it's like, who do you know? And
Yeah,
so, like back then, you know, when I was 20, 21, 22, I was getting started. And who did I know? Well, I knew my roommate, and we'd go and work out together, and neither of us knew a damn thing. So,
right.
and we didn't know anybody else. So we just kind of floundered, and we're like, okay, cool, we worked out, cool, let's go get a burger. It's like, like
Yeah, it's
we
so
didn't know
true. Like,
anything about anything.
no, and I would talk to like power lifters. I'm like, how do you build like this right here? How did you get your arms like that? You know, because I
Hmm.
wanted to know like how they got that big or whatever as I got more into it. And then I remember like my first show, I had no idea. I was just doing protein shakes towards the end.
I mean, you bought into the marketing in the magazines.
I did. I
Yeah.
did. I was like, that must be what they do 100%.
Totally. You just have your Celtec shakes and then you look like Ronnie Coleman. That's how it works.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Muscle Tech or EAS, the
Absolutely.
rip
Oh,
open packets. Those were so good though, I'll tell you that. And I used to eat like probably 5 or 6 a day.
oh,
And then
what
I'd
were
have
the
like,
ones that they were those rip open packets? What was it? It wasn't EAS. It was like
oh, they had Metrex had it.
Metrex. That was the one. Yeah. Yeah.
That tastes like absolute
Oh, I lived off those things for way too long. Yeah.
Yeah, see? But see, there was at one point that it was like, it was just not good for your system, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like yeah, I mean, I really had no idea. I was like, okay, I'm supposed to eat vegetables, I'm supposed to eat protein. I'd have cottage cheese all the time. I would have like sweet potatoes, but I really didn't understand the chemistry between it. And then I started learning like which foods were more like thermogenic, um, would help fire up the metabolism more, like with spices and like, you know, like cayenne pepper. And I started to like really read into how your metabolism works with food.
Get into more of the
And
why rather than
so
somebody
why?
saying, do this, do this, do this. It's like,
Yeah,
that'll get you so
yeah,
far. But
yeah.
yeah. So what one thing, so I always think like, what would happen if I started? Because I would say I didn't really start training with some idea of like I kind of knew what I was doing until much later than I would have liked to admit, like mid-20s, something like that.
Right.
So you got started kind of early. If you were, let's say, in your mid to late 30s right now and just getting started, how would you do things differently? So it's today, modern day. You have access
Right.
to all this stuff. What are two things that you would do, or if you could transport the 18-year-old Kelly from back then up to today, what would you tell her to do differently?
Well, first I would go get a nutrition. I would learn nutrition first, whether it was a certification or get into dietetics or something
Mhm.
younger, to learn diet. However, nothing against anybody that does diets for a living. Sometimes, no, no, not you. I'm talking like, you know, like sometimes like registered dietitians and all
Yeah.
of that, depending on like what their knowledge is, not always does it coincide with bodybuilding diets. Or even like when it comes to things like that. So like I think the number one thing I would do is really learn about how foods work with the body. Um, and it's weird because also through my time and my journey, I have learned that if you eat the same thing all the time, your body becomes intolerant to it. Um, there's foods that contain the family salicylates. So if somebody's allergic to aspirin and they eat nothing but dark leafy greens and broccoli and all these things over and over and over again, they may start developing rashes or intolerances and they don't know where it's coming from. But then I learned about something back in the day called a chemical-free diet, and where you have like, you just go on like iceberg lettuce and all these things that don't have pesticides, because your body, sometimes competitors, people that diet can get like on these like low carb, constant like vegetables, and they don't realize that over time, just like if you eat eggs all the time, your body can become intolerant to it, right? So those are the things that I think, like when you first start and you get on a roll and you think you got your body under control, if you learn about diet and what really works is number one. Number two, I think that you should also read actual literature, not bro science.
Hey, what are you saying? Bro science is responsible for some of our greatest discoveries.
It's true. It is true. It is
But you,
true. But
you
I,
you can't you can't have a diet, mental diet built on that alone.
right.
Yeah.
And I mean, the same thing with like training, like, you really got to learn about the different cycles of training, the types of like, how to do more like anabolic type of style training where you're going to build, depends on your repetitions you do, how much rest you have, like month cycles, like you'll do like, these different cycles throughout your training so that you can build endurance and so that you can build strength. I mean, there's like so much for people to really learn. I think that the foundation is what you really need to learn.
And so conversely to that, if you could talk to your younger self and say, here is one thing that you really need to just ignore, not worry about, it's overrated, it's stupid, forget about this, what would that be?
The
Something
one
that
thing is
that you've wasted a bunch of mental energy on, or whatever, that
cardio.
is cardio. Okay. How do you really feel?
Cardio. I was a cardio bunny, younger. But I thought you could not, like, if I missed a day of cardio, I was psycho. I would freak out and I would think I was going to get fat the next day.
Hmm.
And I still
So
have,
it's essential, but it can't be like It can't be like at the bottom of your pyramid.
Correct.
Yeah.
It is essential. However, as I tell people, just like muscle mass burns more fat than cardio.
Yeah.
Over time anyway.
So focus on getting bigger.
Focus on developing muscle, because you could build that structure first.
Mm-hmm.
Then once you want to strip that down, at least you'll have a physique to look at instead of like over cardioing it off, because a lot of people tend to do that.
Yeah.
Or they think that that's going to be what spikes their metabolism when it's really not.
And to be clear, I mean, some people want that look, that supermodel, like I have no shape to my body, I'm just as small as possible kind of look. So
they do.
But those are people that I think typically don't listen to this podcast. So we can just kind of pretend they don't exist.
I was about to say, Darren, this is just a little.
Yeah, I'm working on my supermodel physique. I'm trying to get my BMI down to like 10. See if I can do that. So, so let's. I don't need a full history or anything, but you said like 29, 30 shows, and so like you've been competing long enough that you've done figure in a one piece.
Right.
And it's always funny now when I see those pictures, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember when that was a thing.
Yeah. So yeah.
What are some of your highlights? Like two or three shows that really stand out to you for one reason or another?
So I have to say my first show, because I took third in my first show that I ever threw myself into when I was 21. And I have to say 2005, I won shows in Florida. It was like the All South. And then most definitely 2017, my highlight was taking 10 years off and getting on stage at North Americans and missing my pro card by one spot in two different classes, figure and physique. And honestly, like that week I was sick. I had 104-degree fever. So I literally didn't think that I was going to be able to get on stage because I flew in from Florida, stayed up there for a week trying to get my body to acclimate. And then I remember I was like, I can't do these depletion workouts. I'm going to die. Like, this is not good. Like, I felt so sick. I had to hit airborne and everything to like try to kick that out of my system before the show. So to like walk away with a third place in two different classes, which the top two turned pro, I was like floored. I was like, this is awesome. And people were like, man, I thought you should have won. I'm like, I don't really care. I'm like, this is crazy. I had to come back and I'm like missing by one spot. They're dangling this over my head. You know what I mean?
You're like, screw the pro card. I'm just glad I didn't die.
Not even that. It's like to come back from a 10-year hiatus and like just jump on the first national show that I had in my plan and to miss it by one spot is like really kind of unheard of. Because that's like you'd probably tell your clients just like I do, like you don't expect to always win your first go around, right? But sometimes you go in. And in my case, it was like by a spot, and that was like like I said, it's usually unheard of. So it was kind of a shocking thing. It kind of really kind of opened my eyes to like, wow, I can really do this again.
Yeah. Was that your first national show, or did you compete on a national stage before your break?
I competed at North Americans in 2006 in figure.
Okay. So North Americans is kind of your jam, apparently.
It was my jam, yes.
Yeah.
And it was
why is that?
I'm from Pittsburgh.
Oh.
So I was
back
born
home.
in Pittsburgh. Yeah. But the cool thing is when I did attempt it the first time, like I got like third call outs and I was smaller. I was like 26. So here I go up there, I'm 37 at the time. And I literally like just missed it by one spot, first call outs in both classes. And I was like, what just happened? I mean, it was like, it was surreal to me.
Did you feel like you were ready for that? I mean, obviously being sick kind of changes your perspective a little bit, but did you go into that like, the last couple weeks of prep, like, man, I'm kind of where I need to be?
I did, but just like anybody else, I'll admit, any other competitor, you look through Instagram and stuff, and I'm like Googling North Americans, and I hashtag North Americans 2017, see who's competing. And I freaked myself out because I see Canadians, And I was like, oh God, this girl's doing my class. It's not good. And I would like freak out. So when I got there, I'm like looking around. There was literally 1,000, I think 1,250 competitors total at that show. And the line for tanning for the females made me want to pass out. So I'm like, there's no way. I just flew up here, entered these categories. There's no way I'm gonna place in the top 5. I'm like, there's no way. There's
See,
not so many
I'd be
girls.
thinking, there's no way I'm even going to get to the front of this line to get my damn tan. It's like, what the hell?
Pretty much. It was pretty crazy,
Man.
and I was like, what am I doing? And I just laid back there. I was like, you know what? I'm here. Whatever happens, happens. Everybody looks great. And then I started to see my body after I had a burger, in like the morning. No, I didn't have a burger in the morning. Sorry. My pancakes.
Maybe you should
And
have. Maybe that would have
back.
been second place.
I know. And I laid back and I remember kicking my feet up and I looked at my quads and I always gauge by my legs, right? So I looked at my quads and I was like, they're pretty dang ripped. I'm like, they are really conditioned. I looked around other girls and I'm like, I don't see that conditioning, right? So like I kind of knew it was going to be.
You saw the signs.
Kind of. And
Yeah.
I felt more confident in it so that when I went out there, it was like one of my best presentations I've ever had on stage. Even from
That's the
being
thing.
pro.
If you aren't confident, it's like they can see that.
Right.
If you have that I don't belong here look on your face, they're going to make sure that
Right.
you aren't there. They're not going to put you in that group.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So walk me through the chronology here and a little bit of what was in your head. So the first time you did North Americans, you said like third call out. Was that the last show that you did before your break?
Yep. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Okay, so it was very much like this is not what I was expecting, and this is not the result that I wanted. This is a lot of work, and I'm not getting what I want out of it, so screw it.
Yeah, and it was like I was doing 4 shows a year. I was cramming all these shows together. That's how 30 shows came about. Because like I'm like, well, there's one here. Oh, because Florida's like a mecca. So we have this one this weekend, this one that weekend. So I was hitting these shows. I did shows though. While that between that time frame, I had done shows. I did Monica Brandt's show in 2002 up in Washington D.C. It's like I would just try to do different shows. And I was doing good. So I thought that because I didn't realize the national level was like, so, and I'm like the all natural thing. And I was like, just this muscular, but like lean, beanpole looking girl ish with muscle, and I get up there and I'm like, these girls are so muscular. I'm going to get swallowed. And I was swallowed. It was like I was the baby in fish.
But back then, I mean, even today, you go to a show today. I went to a show in Chattanooga, not last year because there weren't any shows, but 2019. And the figure category, not just a class, but the category was 2 women. That was it. So, but back then there was no physique. I don't even think bikini was around yet. So as a woman, if you wanted to compete, it was figure or bodybuilding. So there were a lot more. So if you're talking a national level show, I'm thinking third call out is still like, at least middle of the pack, right?
Yeah, it was. But we had like, it was like, I think there was about 50 deep per class. It was like that big. And I'm like, there's no way. And we had to do 2 rounds. You got to 1 piece, 2 piece. It was like, yeah, by that time I just got burnt out and my body was it was taking a toll on my body.
Doing
and I'm
doing
like,
4 shows a year. Jesus.
Yeah, but
That's
it
a
was
lot.
dumb. I was dumb. I was doing a dumb thing.
This just came into my head as a random question. The 1 piece and the 2 piece. So you have to get 2 suits. Were they as expensive back then as they are today?
No, they were velvet. They were
Okay.
velvet mostly, and the wet look didn't come out until like the shiny material didn't come out. And when it did, it was like, whoa, that's really pretty. But they didn't want the bling either. So like you had to get like this 1 piece that was kind of cut to your hips, but like showed your ribs, and like it was like, but all you had really was a crystal in the middle and like some sprinkled out crystals, and they were about 350. Was like a good one,
Compared to
Now
the
it's like,
$25 trunks that the guys wear.
right.
It's still a bullshit scam. I'm sorry. Women get screwed on this. They really do. At least
They
you've only got to
do.
buy one suit for a show now instead of two. But
And that suit's about $1,250 if you're going for a nice one.
yeah. I still think like looking at the photos, like what were they thinking with the one piece? It's like, you get somebody who's lean and in shape. What's the first thing that you think of? Oh, they got abs. Well, let's just hide those with a piece of fabric. It's like,
It was
what's the
like
point?
supposedly it was supposed to be showing your symmetry, like your waist to hip ratio, you know,
Interesting.
with your waist coming in and your shoulders. It was supposed to show just the shape because it was called figure. But then like it was a real long show. And if they still did that, I don't think anybody would probably attend the show.
Every show would be 2 days.
It would be like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
And I do think that they should separate bikini and wellness. Maybe doing wellness with that kind of a suit would be kind of cool. Because it is lower body dominant. So like
Yeah.
it would be just to showcase the lower body and you cover up the top. I mean, that might be kind of a cool concept, but
It's like a figure suit on the bottom and like a crop top sweatshirt up top.
something like that.
This is
No,
why
like
I'm not in charge of
exactly.
anything.
Yeah, I know, Darren.
I have ideas. I don't make any pretense that there are ever any good ones.
Sometimes you get good ones.
So then you turned pro at what show was it? It was a weird one.
Okay, it was a weird one. That's Darren. It was the first annual Caribbean Bahamas. It was the Grand Prix. Well, this is a cool story.
Like I've never heard of that show. I'm like, it's a pro qualifier. That's weird.
That's exactly what. So before nationals, right? I was like, basically felt like 2017 was my promise year for 2018. Like if I was just gonna go in, because I was top 5 in Miami, top 5 in North American. So people were like, Kelly, you're gonna get your pro card in 2018. And I was so dead set on it that I took the whole year to prep for this show. And it was coming in good. But I had a coach at the time that, he tried the old school thing with me and overcarbed me, and I spilled over in nationals in Miami. And I was really disappointed because I got 6th. And I was like, yeah, I just missed the top 5. And I'm like, oh my God. But the week prior, one of my friends found the postcard for the Caribbean Grand Prix. And it was a Florida promoter that did this. And basically what it did is it opened it up to all countries to come. So like, yes. So you had people from Russia, from Brazil, all these different people from all over the world were there.
So it's kind of like the Arnold Amateur in a sense, in that way.
Yes. So
okay.
I went in thinking, they're like, oh, you should register. Even the promoter said register because they had a booth at the Nationals, and they said, come to this show and just put, just try it. So I went for bodybuilding and physique, and I could have done figure. I could have went in for figure. But you had people that didn't do what they wanted to at Nationals sign up for this show. So it was like a 2-week turnaround. So after the Nationals, it was 2 weeks later. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to change my package, do this myself, strip it all off, and then just see if I can come in 10 pounds tighter or something like that, just so I don't look, too big on stage, because I feel like I look bigger than all the physique girls that year. And I pulled it together, and I mean, like every day I kept coming down and coming down and coming down, and I'm like, okay, this is where I need to be. Just gonna wing it.
Did you beat your ass pretty hard for those 2 weeks?
Oh, it was bad. Yeah, I was tired. I was tired, but you know what? It was worth it because I'm like, this has got to happen. The willpower, like the feeling inside of me, that burning desire, was so high that I'm like, I'm not gonna not do this. I have to do this, and pulled it together. Flew down. Totally freaked out again, like when I saw everybody checking. I'm like, there wasn't supposed to be this many people.
This is supposed to be an under the radar kind of show.
Yes. So I'm like, what are these people from Russia? And they're all joining bodybuilding. I saw the girls checking in for bodybuilding. We had to weigh in. I'm like, oh my God, her shoulders are bigger. There's no way. I kept looking at the shoulders, I'm like, there's no way. And so you had to win overall. Okay. Like you couldn't just win your class, you had to win the overall.
Wow, that correct me if I'm wrong, but that's pretty unique among pro qualifiers. Like
Mm-hmm.
they don't necessarily give them out like candy, but they aren't usually that stringent with them.
Right. So people were told just do that show. And because nationals is so big, they threw people in there from that show that, you by weigh-in is what you get your bodybuilding, that's all by weight. So I'm like, okay, this is gonna be a tough one. And then I didn't have routines ready. So basically I could wing it. So like I did. And I did physique first, and then I just threw something together in 2 minutes backstage. I was like, you know, thinking, okay, should I start on the floor? And I like kind of ran through it in my head. And the DJ's like, I said, just play something. I don't care. Just play something.
Just play something.
So I posed, and then they did the call outs, and I was dead center, and they didn't move me. And Steve Weinberger was the head judge. And I'm like, oh, great. So I'm like sweating up there. I'm like, oh, Jesus, this is Steve Weinberger. He likes them hard. And I'm like, there's girls in this class that are huge. And I looked down the audience, and I remember seeing like J.M. Mannion was out there, and I know him. And like, there's a couple other people that were like shaking their head, like they looked at me and made eye contact. Like, I think you got this class. And I was thinking in my head, I'm like, I'm going to pass out. This is like, once again, I freaked out, don't think I'm going to make it. I'm smiling, and I ran off stage, and someone's like, I think you're going to get this. I'm like, because I'm thinking in my head, oh my God, that means I'm going to get a pro card. What the heck is going to go, And then everything went black, and I went and did my other routine, made that one up too. They called us back. Then we had to do comparisons for the bodybuilding physique. And I remember them telling me that I like won that overall, and I was shocked. Like and they interviewed me, and I put a crown on my head, and that's all I remember. They gave me a sword.
And you didn't cut anybody with it? You didn't kill yourself with it or anything?
No,
I wouldn't give a sharp object to somebody who's clearly dazed and confused. I think that's an accident waiting to happen.
I almost passed out on stage. I wish they had that video. I mean, I would like literally rocked backwards because I was like, holy crap. And then when I did my other round and came back out, and they awarded me that too, I'm like, oh my God, like, should I pass this down to somebody? I don't know what to do. Like, I didn't know what to do.
I don't think they let you do that.
I know they actually do. If you do
really?
classes like North Americans, and you got like 40 and over, 35 and over, if you win all those classes, you can choose to pass it down to the third place.
Interesting.
But it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I was like kind of weirded out, but I didn't have no brain power going. So like, I just was like, okay. And I remember we did our thing, and I had these two swords that taking the pictures. And I'm like, oh my God, Kelly, you just did it. Like, it was so awesome.
That's wild.
It was wild. It was so crazy. And I'm telling you, like, that's why, like, you just never know. And I always tell people, don't ever think that you can't do it, because I've been through it through so many years. And like, there's been times I gave up. Like 10 years is a long time.
Well, that's the thing. It's a lot of shows a year, and you're going, and you're getting somewhere. And like North Americans, third call-outs, that's not nothing. But again, it's everybody's going to handle that a little bit differently. And so then you take a break. Like, I'm going to take a break, and 6 months turns into a year, turns into 10 years, and then you come roaring back, and it's like, man, I think we learned something. I think something good happened during that break. So, I mean, clearly you weren't stagnant. You were still working.
I was still working. But the good thing is that I took a step back and focused more on coaching. And I was vicariously living through my clients and getting that, watching them on stage shining. And I had no desire to get back on stage. I did not care. I was like, I don't care if I get back on stage. I really wasn't planning until people were like, Coach, I want to see you do it. I was like, oh man, this is pressure.
This sounds really familiar. I'm just saying.
It does. But you know what's crazy? That's the most inspiring part. And what I would say is, at one point I'm like, it doesn't really matter if you're a pro or not. And in my opinion, it's a surreal feeling and it's really amazing when it happens. But I think what matters more with the pro card, and this is just my opinion, for anybody that has competed or someone like you that was going to get back on stage, the cool thing about
Probably.
turning pro, the thing about turning pro is it gives you that I did all this all these years. I've coached these people, all this knowledge. I trained so hard, and like normally you don't. Sometimes you don't get any reward for that. It's not really something except like as a concrete result. You can look in the mirror and go, "Hey, I
Nothing
did this."
tangible.
You know, right? It's not really tangible. So when you have a card that you're like, "Wow, I am like a person that won a bodybuilding card based upon how I look." And it's like they call, it's an elite thing throughout the world. It's an accomplishment, I think, of all the hard years in the journey. I feel like that's what hits me emotionally when I think about it sometimes. And I look at a card, I look at my cards, or I look at my actual one that I signed, and and it's got Jim Mannion's signature on it. And then when you get that first email that says, "Welcome to the Pro League," you're like, whew, that really is crazy.
That hits a little different.
It is different.
Yeah.
And then you know, I don't feel different than anybody else. I don't feel different than any other competitor.
Hmm.
You know,
So after you
I
got your
just
pro card, did you go and look for pro shows right away, or did you take a year? What was
took
the
a year off.
did you have a strategy to do that? That was kind of the
Yeah,
plan. Okay.
yeah,
You think that was the right move?
yeah, I do. Um, it was just a weird year, and I just wanted to live my life. I didn't want to get like, I don't want to continue to like beat myself up, because also, as you know, you have to have balance in your life. And you do all these things too. So you have like, like you play music and you have your dogs, and you do things that are outside of this sport. And I feel like if you keep going and you keep doing it year after year, it can also, you can, like I said, you can maintain what you have, and like you can continue to train. It doesn't mean you have to get on stage constantly. And it's good to have the accountability of a coach or whatever, and just continue to progress. But you don't have to step on that stage all the time, because that dieting down period, and that can really get to your head and ruin your life if you do it every year. I mean, it
Yeah.
could ruin the balance you have. You know what I mean?
And that's the funny thing about balance, because I agree completely. Like I need to have that kind of balance. This is, bodybuilding is my career, So when it's also kind of like a hobby, as it is for most people, but it's also your career, it kind of becomes all consuming. So I think that balance becomes more important. So how do you reconcile that with the fact that you are stepping on stage to compete against people that think that balance is weakness, and they're just all in, but they're going to have a career that's done and gone in 5 years because they burn out?
How do I,
Um,
okay, how
it,
do
it,
I,
it, it's tricky because you're putting yourself, with your perspective about balance being important, up against people who don't think that, and they're not going to have the longevity that you do, but you still have to
correct,
compete against them all the same.
correct. And you
I
know
don't
what
know
I've
that there's
noticed?
really a question in there, actually, now that I
There
say
is
it.
a question. It is a good question, because I think that if you have that mindset, like I'll look at it and I'm not like gonna say anything to them, but I will. I know that eventually that person that is all consumed with it, they're going to go through something. You'll eventually see them either post something like, "Competition ruined my life and it messed my body up, my metabolism, my head. I lost these years because of it." I've seen it so many times. Like even pros write these things and they're like, "Bodybuilding, I'm not getting, I'm retiring." And the reason they're saying that is because they've let it consume them, and they're looking at it from like this, it's all or nothing. If I don't do it this year, then people are going to forget me. I'm like, that's so not true. I mean, because people really aren't paying that much attention to each individual competitor. If they're not your like fan or whatever, they don't
Yeah.
really care. When they see you on stage, it's whoever shows up. And if you look phenomenal after a 5-year hiatus, 10-year hiatus, taking time off. You may have health issues, you might have this. And if you allow that balance to bring you back, you won't lose the drive. You won't feel as, as what is it called? Like burn out from it, like I got to. And then you'll learn like it's more fun to prep. But when you feel like it's like this every day, like, oh man, I gotta do this, that's when you shouldn't be doing a show,
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is I hear those things as well. Like bodybuilding is unhealthy; it created health problems. Like it didn't do that. You let that happen. I mean, let's be clear. You have some control over this, and don't blame your coach either,
Right.
because you always have the ability to say, "Hey, I don't think this is a smart move," because you know not all coaches are out there looking after your health and being concerned with that.
That's true.
Especially when you have somebody who, and this happens a lot, where they're like, no matter what it takes, I don't care what I have to do. I don't care how hard I have to diet. I don't care how much cardio I have to do. I don't care what kind of drugs I have to take. It doesn't matter until then one day it does. And then
Right.
suddenly they blame the coach, et cetera. So I've never had that happen to me, but I've seen that with other people where it's clearly they are all in and going to whatever extremes they want, and then one day they realize like, oh no, this is unhealthy. People shouldn't do this. I'm like, well, maybe you shouldn't do it the way that you did, but there are other paths.
That's so true. I think like the cool thing about our situation is like and how we coach is experience. I think once you get, it's like I look back and I'm like, here I'm in my 40s and I remember looking at people in their 40s that were in bodybuilding when I was young. And I used to admire them because if they were in shape and they're still training and they have this knowledge to give me, I was the receptive person to that knowledge, right? And I think that now I'm starting to feel like that older person. I have that wisdom of like, don't do it. Don't go over the top. You're obsessed with this. Like, you don't always have to be that regimented, like that's how I start to feel with when I tell people, don't let this consume you. And I'm talking through experience, not just like, I don't want you to do well. Like, I want you to do well. I want people to achieve their goals. But I just know I'm not going to stop somebody in their tracks, but I want them to know that there are other ways to do this where they're not going to get burnt out.
I want
And
people
it's
to
like,
achieve their goals, but not at the expense of other stuff that might be important too.
yeah, like your relationships, your
Your
family,
family.
like,
Yeah.
like friends. I mean, really good friends. If you start cutting everything out of your life just for this, you can do it, but you don't have to do all that extreme. Like, I mean, and you can miss a day at the gym if you have to. Some people just can't, like, once they get into this, it becomes so consuming, they can't break free of that
Yeah,
monster.
they let it consume themselves, and they get themselves
Yeah,
into this pattern where they feel like I have to become a hermit in prep. I must say no to absolutely everything. I'm like, you don't. And you can say yes to some stuff. Like you can go with people to things. You'll have to make other sacrifices. Like, yeah,
yeah,
go to that party with your friends, bring a meal, pound some water, but it's not like you have to miss out. It's going to take some discipline to do that. You're probably increasing your degree of difficulty a little bit because, you're forcing yourself to flex that discipline muscle a little bit harder,
right,
but you don't have to hermitize yourself, if I can create a word
correct.
there, in order to
Oh
make it
yeah,
work.
that's a good word.
I kind of like it.
Traumatized.
Yeah,
I
I will use that a
did
lot
not
with
I
me
did not
because that's how I live.
I did not hermitize. I am a hermit too. I did not hermitize like I mean, I remember 2017, like there was October came around and I was gonna compete in November. And I remember I went to a Halloween party and what I did was I ate before I went in my car. And I knew that I was only gonna be there for like 3 hours, so it wasn't
This
gonna
is
really
you were
affect
how
me.
far out?
A week out.
A week out, and you're going to a Halloween party.
Yep. And I obviously
That's
you don't
hardcore.
drink. You don't drink. Yeah, you don't drink. You don't. But I went there and I was tired. But I mean, I didn't want to like say no. And then I would do the same thing. Like I've been like during COVID, that was a really smooth, like 3 shows I did, not 100% smooth, but like I didn't have so much pressure because I still allowed myself to go in and do things. Like I'll go to the beach. I'm not going to sit there and just like, freak out if I'm off by like 5 minutes or something. If I didn't eat, like I know I have my food and I'm not going to die.
Hmm.
That's, I think, that's such something. I don't know if it takes experience to realize this, or like you said, like, you know, people start doing all this stuff like drugs and all this, and someday it forces them to stop. But
Well, they
I
don't really
think
have much of a
that
choice anymore.
yeah, and a good
Yeah.
coach is like gets them out of that. Like, I'll be like, knock it off. I mean, I literally will tell people, just stop being a baby. Tomorrow you wake up, you're gonna be fine. Life did not just end. And then the next day they're like, you know what, you were right. I'm like, I know, because this is not life or death
This
right
shouldn't be a
now. It's
news
not like
flash
you're
that I'm
gonna
right.
die.
Come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I think it's like it gets in your head. You get in your head too much. That's what most competitors get in their head. Even the closer to a show, you could really get in your head. So
Oh yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah. I've been there too.
I know.
Is there anyone in this industry older than you that you look up to?
Man, a
Your,
lot.
your Yoda, your guru?
My Yoda. Okay, so I worked with, back in the day, I worked with Joe McNeil, who coached Dexter Jackson, and he was an OCD under the radar coach, and he still lives here in Florida. Um, Whole home gym, all home gym, total hermit. He had tools in his garage that he would literally polish and put the back in there in place. He vacuumed his gym every day
This is my kind of
underneath the
guy.
equipment. Exactly. So he would weld, like on a calf raise, he welded different bars that would work better. And he would actually get under your heels, push your feet up so that you can get a full contraction in your calf if you couldn't get up that high. Like, he was so precise that he'd walk around you like he was looking at like some kind of, you know, some kind of vehicle that he just built. It was like checking all angles, make sure you're pressing right. And so that precision and his way of doing like giant sets and workouts were 20 minutes max, and you felt like you were gonna die, like literally, like you felt like you saw stars. And I remember learning his methods. And my coach Mark Andriozzi, who was a coach here in Florida, he also was a pharmaceutical rep. Went to college, total OCD, amazing. Another amazing coach. Worked, ironically, I found out he actually worked under Joe.
Oh.
He was one of Joe's clients back in the day too.
Hmm.
And because their philosophies are so similar. And Mark was like a random check-in guy. Like, I would have to check in with him. He'd be like, hey, I need pictures this morning. I'm like, oh no.
but
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
not
Mark was
ready.
good. Yeah. So he was good. And those two really, I've worked with other coaches too that were really well known. But I mean, those two really, I think it's the precision and the attitude of like, don't be a baby, like don't bitch to me about this, because I would cry to Mark, and he would just hang up the phone.
Wow. It's a
Yeah,
warm shoulder right
he was
there.
good. He was good, but what's weird is that over time I loved it so much that he gave me all this incredible knowledge, and just both of them, and how to be like a good coach. And I think that the ways I've implemented that in my coaching style a lot, because it's what gets you successful clients, and it also helps you learn that, you know, the techniques of certain people that are really strong, when it comes to that willpower. You need to keep your client going with their own willpower. It's really tough when somebody gets like in their head and they're crying to you and they're like, I don't know if I can do this, you know, and you're like 3 weeks out. And I just remember things that Mark said, and so I just say that right back to them, you know, like one
Don't
time
need to
I said, I
reinvent the wheel
can't.
on that stuff.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? He used to tell me, I was like, I'm like, my life absolutely sucks. I don't know if I want to do this. I think I should. He's like, first of all, you're a Marine. And I was like, oh man, here we go with the Marine thing.
Like, oh shit.
Secondly, he goes, why don't you take yourself to, he would say, take yourself to a cemetery and go tell those people and complain to them about your life being so difficult. I'm sure one of them would want to switch places with you any day. And I was like, oh my God.
Wow.
Back
That hits deep.
That hit deep, because I literally would be on like my knees crying, like, I cannot do this. I feel like I'm going to die 2 weeks out. And then I realize now how pathetic I sounded.
The one thing that it's all good. It's all good. One thing that I always remind people, and I think a lot of people interpret this as a threat or something, but it's not. I always tell people if they start getting into a space like that, I'm just remember, this is 100% voluntary. Nobody is making you do this with a gun to your head. So if it's really that hard, quit. But then ask yourself, are you going to be happy with that decision, or are you going to think that's a mistake in 2 weeks? And the answer is usually like, you keep pushing through. You suck it up.
Mm-hmm.
It's like what my wife tells me. If I'm in a funk or something, or I'm in a mood, she will tell me like, you can do that for another 30 minutes and then you need to snap the fuck out of it. I'm like,
I love that.
That's fair. That's fair.
See,
Okay.
see that's what I'm talking about. I like her.
Yeah.
It's true. It's like you can't just keep dragging out this negative attitude, because it's not going to get you anywhere in this world. Seriously.
Yeah. I mean, you can use that. You can take a minute and process how you're feeling, but you can't stay there. And I think that's what she's talking about when she says that to me, which is probably more often than she should have to. But and it's never anything about like, prep or anything, because I always tell people like, don't be a prep martyr. Like if your diet sucks, or you're tired of doing cardio, or you don't want to train, like internalize that shit, because nobody wants to hear it.
I know.
Like, as a coach, I kind of want to know about it. I'm not saying I care a whole lot, but there are times when that might mean like, hey, you know what? You might actually need a couple days off, or
That's exactly what I
we might actually need a refeed. So tell me that stuff. Don't whine, like inform,
right.
but just don't use it as a conduit for complaining about stuff.
That's exactly how I feel, and that's exactly how I tell people things. You know what I mean? But that's true. If you just can't keep being a martyr, because it's like, this is something that you want to do, so you're asking to get on stage to get judged. So you have to be prepared to be judged by how you look. And if you don't like that, then maybe you should just look the part and not step on stage.
Because you can. That's totally valid too. You can do that.
Yeah, you can do that. But if you were trying to get over fear and you want to get out there, you can't walk in heels, and you want to throw yourself on stage and walk in some heels, and you know what? You better practice, because once again, you're being judged. It's not about, if it's an accomplishment you want to make or it's on your bucket list, it's fine. But don't expect to win. You're just going out there to go out there. Don't get mad if you don't place, if you didn't put the time in, effort, if you don't really want this, if you hate posing, if you hate to smile, if you hate being in front of people.
I hate to smile. Does that mean I'm screwed?
No, you don't. You're not.
I hate to smile when I'm posing.
Everybody, do you know that Darren does theater?
Oh, yeah. So I don't talk about it a lot just because I haven't done it in a while. But it is something that
theater.
Yes,
he's an actor.
Yes, I have done. In fact, get this, musical theater. So
see, so here's the thing.
I have sung a solo part on stage before.
That's pretty impressive. So let me just say one thing about Darren.
Uh-oh.
Darren is an excellent client. He knows a lot about what he's doing. He knows he's an expert. He's drinking what he always drinks when we pose, whatever that is.
You don't want to know.
Exactly. So, no, but his knowledge is amazing. He's so OCD. He sends amazing check-ins. If you guys are his client, please do him the favor, because he is like, he'll write his feelings, and like, not like that, but what he's going through, all the health issues. He tracks his weight. He sends it on an Excel spreadsheet. I mean, it's impressive, but what's more impressive is that I've gotten a chance to pose some of his clients, and they all adore him because he is precise and he follows through, and he does, check-ins with them and keeps them consistent. So it's been like amazing to watch the whole thing unfold, and Darren get back into this himself. But I really think that it's impressive to see what you do, how much balance you still have in your life. You still go on vacations. See, he can still go on vacations, and he doesn't care.
He hasn't in 15 months.
Yeah, but he kind of sort of took a week off.
Well, I take weeks off, yeah, but that wasn't a vacation. I had a staycation in December.
That's what I'm saying, a staycation. So the thing is that that's the good part. And the success comes from the balance in your life. I think you just need to have that balance so that, you have an outlet. Humans don't cope well with stress. So
Mm-mm.
you don't have an outlet, stress is going to kill you. There's a lot of things happen when you stress out.
And
And
when it doesn't kill you, it's going to do bad things to your body before it kills you.
exactly.
Yeah, none of it's
Exactly.
conducive to what we're trying to do here.
No, no,
Well,
no.
you're too kind. I appreciate that. And I've told you before, I'm like, the reason why the clients of mine that you pose have good things to say is because I'm very selective about who I send to you. So I don't send you any of the people that are going to talk shit about me. Because
I don't think many probably do
I gotta maintain that
because
reputation.
right. And the thing is that if you're accountable and you want this and your coach is there for you and they're very like, and they're like, hey, where's my check-ins? You know, they shouldn't have to chase you down either. Coach should never have to chase you down for a check-in picture or for what when you sign up for this. So like it's also something too, you want to make sure that you give your coach everything they ask because if you don't, it's like,
You're only
what's the
hurting
point?
yourself.
Yeah, you're not going to get where you want.
Yeah. All right. So we'll wrap this up here quickly. We've been going for like an hour, so I appreciate
It's an
that.
hour.
Yeah. So this is your chance to be brutally honest, and so I don't need you to blow smoke or anything like that. So give me an honest assessment here. So I'm like 31 weeks out, which means we're probably like
Right.
what 15 or so weeks before jumping into prep, something like that.
Correct.
What do I have
Yep.
to work on between now and then?
Well, always work out because so you have a great chest, you have a great back, you have great, overall symmetry. Of course, the legs, we got to bring them up.
Yeah, notice she didn't say legs.
Bring up the legs. But no, your legs are great. It's just that stage, you want to bring them up. So you got to
Yeah.
bring up the legs. Your lats are great. Your lower lats are great.
Okay.
But I mean, depth, density,
Mm-hmm.
31 weeks is a lot of time.
It's a long time. So, and
It's a
this is
long
the question
time.
that I've got a lot of clients that are eager to hear this. And that is once prep starts, what do I have in store for me? What can I expect? Big picture, big picture.
Turning pro? What?
Yeah.
No, what do you mean? What do you mean? That's no pressure. No pressure, Darren.
Well, yeah, I'm not feeling it at all.
So once prep starts, is you going to be cranky? Is that what you're saying?
Well,
Or what?
they can't wait for me to be on
Go
poverty
through it.
macros and doing a shit ton of cardio and being miserable and being
Well,
everything that they are typically. I'm exaggerating a little bit.
First of all, Darren gets 500 carbs plus a day.
It's been closer to 600 this
Closer
week,
to
and
600.
I've still been
So,
starving.
and he starves. So Darren has a pretty high metabolism, so he doesn't really need to cut super low calories or anything until, I mean, and then
Not too
Darren barely does
aggressively.
cardio. He barely does cardio. So those things are what really is going to happen. So I don't ever think we're going to like really change the food aspects much. Not until like towards the very, very end, but I think that the cardio might be something. Well, unless you want to switch your food and eat less and not do cardio. But I think just even a little bit of cardio, adding that's going to be what's going to change.
Yeah.
I don't think Darren's going to suffer too much
Oh.
for a long period of time.
For a long period. There'll be short periods of intense suffering.
No, it'll be short periods. I
You
mean,
think
honestly, like
slow and steady is the right approach?
slow and steady, and I didn't suffer very much last year either. Um, I mean, I was drinking Monster Energies too up to the
How much cardio were you doing towards the tail end of your preps?
40 minutes max.
40. Not doubles or anything like that, just 40 minutes.
No, and I was doing a lot of hit. So
Yeah.
that's something too. Like I think old school people think that doing tons like an hour plus cardio is going to help. Sometimes it's so detrimental to your system, and it really ruins the cortisol, throws you off. Your whole body goes into like the spiral. You're burning muscle. So
I
I
always
think
favor
that's been
shorter, harder sessions.
shorter, harder sessions are great. And I think like whether it's plyometrics or short sprints. I don't really run on the treadmill because my knees hurt. But sprints fine. that kind of stuff's good. But I think like more like, I love the spin bike. Like that's my thing too. Like I think the spin bike's good when you stand up, sit down, and just throw yourself into intervals. You can really kick your butt like doing that. Same thing with like, even elliptical, but you gotta set it high and you gotta sit into it. Like you have to use your glutes, you have to incorporate like more lower body movement. Same thing with the step mill.
It can't be all push and pull with the arms.
Right. Same thing with the step mill though. You can't be leaning over the whole time, slow.
Get your ass upright.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you could put some bands on those quads and do the step mill with bands. Trust me, that sucks.
I had a colleague of mine when I trained, and he would always he had clients that he would send on the treadmill at an incline, and they'd be holding on to the treadmill, and he would from across the gym yell out, "No buggy pushing." Which I'm like, yeah, because at that point, if you're holding on, you've just reoriented, so you are facing up towards the ceiling, but you're still flat. You're not at an incline anymore.
See, and normally like treadmill walking and stuff is great. Like the last month probably is good because you're not going to burn muscle. Incline walking is great. It can also flare up, you can get shin splints from it, but
foot problems,
all that. But walking is a good way towards the very end so that you don't have like this crazy cardio you're doing. And it just depends. Everybody's so individual though. Like, I can't just say, oh, you're going to do this. You're all going to do the same thing. It just depends on how someone responds.
I have a typical direction for cardio, especially that I like to push people in. But sometimes you just got to listen, and sometimes it doesn't work for everybody. So like I've got a default approach. I'm like, we're going to try this and see how it works. And usually it works, and sometimes it's less than ideal. So you got to shake it up a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how I feel too.
Last question I have for you, and this is related to cardio. I did threaten that there would be a geography test too, didn't I?
Yeah, but I said I'd rather spell it encyclopedia.
Okay. All right. Last cardio question. When you're doing cardio, you're doing 40 minutes or whatever. What are you doing? Are you listening to music? You watching something? You staring at a wall? What are you doing?
Listen to music.
Cool. What in particular? Any playlists?
I listen to this. I listen to music that is from movie, like a movie soundtrack.
Like a score?
Just a score. Just music. Like I'll actually Google, like I will listen to classical stuff or whatever. It's so weird, but like I get into this like it's like this whole like because part of the transformation it makes it like it's like this movie that I'm like about to prepare for a fight scene or something.
Interesting.
And I feel like I don't always do because I have a very, very like eclectic taste. Like I like listen to everything. So but I'll start toward the show just going for like more like just musical. Like I don't want to hear words because the words are just going to throw me off sometimes.
Like cinematic stuff.
Interesting. And I'll just, it's weird, but it works for me because it gets me through. And I remember I got through one of my last sessions and I was crying. Last year I was crying because I'm like, this is my last show of 3 in a row. And it's a Chicago Pro. And I'm so over this. I was crying on the bike because I was in so much pain. Like I just felt tired. I'm like, I'm sick of this.
Is that when you say to yourself, maybe 2 shows would have been enough?
Yeah. But see, because Wings of Strength had to bring these shows. They brought to like,
the Chicago
Savannah,
Pro was in Atlanta, so you could drive to it.
Freaking New York Pro was right here in Tampa. I'm like, oh, they're bringing it like literally the day after Savannah. They were like, oh, we're bringing it New York to Tampa. I'm like,
they're daring you to do it.
The sign, yeah.
So you didn't do the Tampa Pro. You did Savannah, Atlanta, and New York.
Yeah.
Okay, I forgot about
this year. Tampa Pro. This year, Tampa Pro is one of my sites.
Okay, so let's talk about your plans really quick. What are you doing this year? Tampa Pro, when is that?
August.
Okay.
6th.
Okay, so you'll be jumping into prep for that before too long.
Yeah, kind of am now, like ish.
Okay, is that it? Just one this year?
I don't know. Like I don't.
So far?
I don't know. I don't know, because there's a lot of stuff going on, and I'm just like thinking about all the other stuff that I have to do within the industry, and I'm like just trying to figure out, well, if this one goes one way, you can just jump into a show, like you feel like doing it, you just sign a contract.
Well, once you do one, like you do that, it's early August, then you're in show condition, and if there's another one like 3 weeks down the road, you can kind of assess how you feel and be like, okay, or nah.
I'll never do back-to-back shows with a double peak week ever again.
Like
So
on
I tell you.
consecutive weeks,
Oh my God, that's what I
like
did last year.
I'm considering doing in November this year.
See, this is like, but you kind of have to do it.
It's
You have
really
to
the only
experience
option
it
I
once,
have.
Darren. We have to experience it once, Darren.
Yeah,
It's the only way.
I was really looking for a way around it, but there weren't show options
Yeah.
on the right dates. So
That's kind of what happened, and I just did it, and I literally thought that like midweek, I actually dug into peanut butter midweek because I needed fat, and I did that, and I ate half a jar, and I thought I was mad at myself because I'm like, this is the week of the New York Pro, but I looked my best at that show, so I just pulled back on what I was gonna do for my kind of like carb up thing, and I figured, I'm like, well, maybe I should just reverse the week instead of just like I start in the early week, with my carbs, and then ride into the show and just drop it then and
yeah.
see if I can pull water or whatever. But I didn't have an issue because I was already lean enough. I was burning through everything.
You're
So
like, mental note, next show, Wednesday, peak week, half a jar peanut butter.
yeah,
That's
or
the
some
secret.
crazy off the wall thing that you'd be shocked.
Yeah.
Don't do a pizza. Don't do that.
No. Save that for the morning of, right?
I've had clients do that. Yeah, I've had clients do that and screw their whole body up. I'm like, why did you do a whole pizza? Why did you do a whole pizza?
Well, that was very cool. We ran long. This is going to be one of the longest episodes in the history of this podcast.
You can always cut it.
You're a record. You think I'm going to edit this? Give me a break. I have better things to do.
Look, Derby's in the back, like, oh, look.
Yeah,
nothing.
this little angel sitting right back here. Here we go. She has sat here motionless for the entire podcast. Derby, are you okay? Derby? Oh, yeah, she's good.
Yeah, normally when Darren's posing, she's like she's basically posing so she thinks she's on stage with him.
Yeah. Oftentimes she'll be in the next room, and then there'll be a truck that walks past, and then she'll run out and be like, "What was that? What was that?" And then she's in the frame, and she just sits there. It's like she knows she's on camera. Yeah, she's a crazy little thing. Oh,
see, she heard it. She knew.
And
you talking about me?
Can probably hear Taz upstairs.
Oh, yeah, but that was funny though. She's like staring at you.
Well, this will be a great time to end this as the dog chaos starts here. So, thank you. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Yes, it was awesome, Darren. Thank you so much.
And tomorrow's check-in, so I got to get my photos ready and all that stuff. So
it's Friday.
It is Friday. All right.
It's Friday.
Awesome.
So
cool.
yeah.
Well, appreciate it, and I'll be in touch.
Hey, and check Darren's website is updated it.
Oh, I did. Yeah. So I actually upgraded my hosting package through my hosting company. So I'm in the big time now. I'm not on a shared hosting plan where you've got a whole bunch of websites that are on the same server. I have my own server now.
So it's faster.
It's faster. I upgraded the software on it. I don't know if the microphone is picking her up.
It's not picking up that bad. It's not that bad.
And I made some updates. I changed some stuff, and I have it set here on my calendar for tomorrow. I've got a little bit more maintenance to do on some behind-the-scenes stuff too. So further changes are coming. Yes, but I got off my ass and did some much-needed maintenance on it yesterday.
Go buy Darren's workout plans because they're good.
Yeah, 5starphysique.com and your website.
KellyLynnFit.com. KellyLynnFit.com, and it was down the other day. I'm upset, so I got to back up in a day.
All right.
Yeah.
And if people want to find you on social, how can they find you?
Kelly Lynn Fit is my universal name.
Okay. If they search for that, they will find you.
They will find just like 5-Star Physique.
Yeah, that's right. I almost ended this podcast without giving you a chance to actually promote yourself. So fail on my part. but we
You
got
don't
there.
need to do that. You don't need to do that.
You're on for a reason. Come on. You talked me up and you filled listeners' heads with all these
Hey, but
lies
hey,
about
listen,
me.
we did a whole podcast about my stupid stuff that I'd tell you, and nobody really cares anyway.
People care. People care. You have to care yourself, and then people will care. That's the only prerequisite.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
so true. Yep. Don't
All
give
right.
up.
All right, boss. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.